Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. Your participation in this election, not only as voters, but as thoughtful citizens who care about the future of this country, is what makes this evening so special. Thank you to the Chamber, the moderator, the media, and the timekeepers for your service to the democratic process. I'm Rod Taylor. My wife Elaine and I have lived in the Bulkley Valley for the past 32 years. I spent most of those years in the lumber industry, both in Smithers and in Whitsett at Kiowa Forest Products. For the past 5 years, I've had the privilege of being the national leader of the CHP, the Christian Heritage Party of Canada, the only federal party committed to the protection of innocent human life at all stages and committed to the restoration and defense of the traditional family and natural marriage between a man and a woman. The CHP also has become the primary defender of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, parental rights, and moral values. As the socialist parties in Ottawa, the NDP, the Liberals, and the Greens have become more aggressive in their demands and more committed to policies that are bankrupting our economy, it falls to people of common sense and sound judgment to push back and to define once again the issues that really matter. The core values of the CHP and the values I represent are life, family, and freedom. The right to life is the first and most basic human right, and it cannot be violated without the loss of our dignity and our moral compass. The family unit is the building block of our society. It's the source of the next generation and the training ground for the responsible and productive citizens of tomorrow. And freedom is essential for democracy. Without freedom of speech and freedom of conscience, we cannot defend any other human right or challenge the assumptions of a dictator. Our freedom to question government policy and to discuss difficult issues without fear of punishment is the result of centuries of sacrifice by good men and women who stood up for principles against tyrants and oppressors. We stand today against the tyrannical methods of compelled speech, government-controlled media, an activist Supreme Court usurping the jurisdiction of Parliament, and socialist politicians using your money for their goals. Our task is not easy, nor is it to be expected to be. Nothing worthwhile is. Unlike the socialists who seek your vote, I cannot pretend the government can meet all your needs or fix all your problems. I do commit myself to you that I will do all I can as your MP to root out corruption, to create a moral environment that will be good for families, a social environment that will strengthen communities, a business environment that will reward innovation and hard work, and a natural environment free of damaging pollution. As your MP, I will make myself available to hear you out, whether or not we agree on everything. That is what our precious democracy is all about. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Regardless of where your party stands on LNG pipelines, how will you use your platform to support the hereditary chiefs whose territory is being destroyed and who have not given their consent to the forcing through of CGL's pipeline on Wet'suwet'en territory to protect their cultural and ancestral lands?
Well, that's a great question, one of the toughest situations facing us in all of us, I think, in this region. It is critical that we find a method, or that Indigenous people find a method to come to an agreement between the hereditary chiefs and the band councils, and even the hereditary chiefs and other hereditary chiefs who take a different point of view. All of us in this society struggle with the ability to come to agreement on things. I know at this table we have a lot of different ideas on things, and those decisions we arrive at by a majority vote, and obviously we're not all happy with every decision that's made, but it is for the Indigenous people themselves to come together and find a way of resolving those questions. There are definitely many hereditary chiefs who are in favor of developments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rod.
Not a rebuttal, but just want to say strongly that the Christian Heritage Party also supports the right of firearms owners to use and possess firearms for sporting, hunting, and for self-defense, the God-given right to defend your family. And we think it's important that we resist attempts for the government to take over private property, including firearms. Private property is something that's not properly protected in the Charter, and it should have been, but we stand for the protection of your right to possess private property, including your home and your firearms. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. With the establishment of the Smithers Pride Society and the progress our town has made and our nation has made with the 2S LGBTQ+ community, what will you do to protect and advance the rights of people and families identifying with sexual orientation and gender identity diversity? Taylor, we have a response from Rod.
Of course, we believe in everyone's intrinsic human rights and the right to respect and dignity in our society. But sexual orientation and gender identity is not in the Charter. If you look at Section 15, it was not put in the Charter. It has been read in by an activist Supreme Court imposing their will on Canada. It was deliberately left out when the Charter was created in the 80s. We are concerned about the imposition of so-called LGBT policy, ideology on young children in the schools. What Pierre Trudeau said back in the 80s, we all kind of agreed with. The state has no place in the bedrooms of the nation. But now, what's taking place in the bedroom is now being brought into the classrooms of this nation, imposed on young children, in many cases against the wishes of their parents. And when they're in school, they should be learning reading, writing, arithmetic, history, science, those types of things, and not being fed an ideology that can be harmful to them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Question for Taylor. What does Indigenous reconciliation mean to you? Question for Claire. What is your plan to ensure Canada's debt burden remains low and affordable today and for future generations?
Just for Claire and those who, in the Conservative Party, would like to talk about balanced budgets. During the 9 years of the Stephen Harper government, the Conservatives added about $144 billion to the national debt. They like to talk about balanced budgets, but unfortunately they never achieved it. And I don't think that a future Conservative government is likely to do the same, because both the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Liberals are out there trying to buy your votes with your money. That's the problem. We're about $700 billion in debt now, and we're paying $70 million every single day in interest on that national debt. And the parties that I see that are buying your votes are actually going to increase that. There's no plan anywhere to pay that down, except the Christian Heritage Party would introduce mandatory balanced budgets, and we would begin paying down the national debt. I've got a lot better use for $70 million a day than paying interest to some foreign bankers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
I know it's a divisive topic. Canada is the only country in the world without any protections for preborn children. And in the Morgentaler decision, the Supreme Court of Canada asked Parliament to address that. Parliament hasn't done so. What would you do to protect children who currently receive absolutely no protection all the way to the point of birth in Canada? Thank you.
Do you want to direct that to any particular candidate, or?
I welcome anyone who's willing to speak to it.
Surprise. The Christian Heritage Party has always stood for the protection of innocent human life from conception until natural death. We think it's extremely important. Right now, our land is polluted with innocent human blood. And we can't expect the creator of the universe, who made us in his image and put us in this land and gave us all the wonderful things we have here, both material and social values. We can't expect his blessing on our economy, on our crops, on our water, on our fish, on our society, if we're violating the protection of innocent human life. We would pass legislation, we would introduce legislation recognizing the personhood of the preborn child from conception. That would be one start. We would introduce legislation ensuring that every woman considering abortion would have access to all the information about child development, would have support if she chose to keep the child for adoption, and would be free of any coercion to have the abortion against her will.
Thank you, Rod.
CHP has always supported mixed member proportional representation. Now, in a recent BC experience, the Green and NDP government came up with a referendum question that was not a very good one. They didn't give us very good choices, so I discovered in that but I was not able to support that particular referendum question because it would have excluded smaller parties and independents more than, I mean, it would have been harder to get elected under their proposal as a small party than it is today. So a lot of it depends on who writes the question. There should be a referendum, but there might have to be a referendum on the referendum. What do you want the question to look like? So anyway, we know that the existing system is not very good. People are voting out of fear instead of voting out of conviction. I think every one of you in this room can make a decision tonight that you're going to vote for what you want, not against what you don't want.
Thanks, Rob.
So I did work in Morristown for 9 years in Witsec, and know some of those personally impacted by this series of tragedies. First of all, I cannot understand why in a proper investigation that we're unable to discover some of the culprits, the people who are responsible for these missing people. Secondly, I would like to, like I just was up north by East Lake and stopped at the roadside memorial for Leonard Dick, who was just murdered by a senseless act of violence. We have a violent society, and somehow we have allowed our young people to grow up with a sense of purposelessness and enjoying the concept of violence, just wanting to experience that for themselves. And that's a tragedy in itself. The last point I want to make is we are missing about 2 million preborn women in this country.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
I was wondering about the if there's been any attention or focus put towards our local infrastructure, if things are going to change compared to how they've been in the past, so that funding for our local infrastructure actually benefits us compared to how it hasn't in the past.
I think any infrastructure project, you should make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck. So I'm not sure if you were referring to some of the projects like sidewalks to nowhere and outhouses on Main Street or not.
And I honestly believe in the next 4 years, whoever leads us is going to be leading potentially in hard times, and if not in the next election, the one after that. So I want to know who of you can work with everybody that you see at the table there and build resilience and reduce the polarization that I feel in this region, and I felt when I was riding my bicycle in Brazil, and I felt it in the US.
4 years ago, when Justin Trudeau was elected Prime Minister, I wrote to him immediately saying, congratulations, the Lord has given you a huge responsibility. I happen to be the leader of a national political party too. I'll be in Ottawa in a couple of weeks. Would it be possible to sit down and discuss some of these things with you? Unfortunately, I never got a reply from, not from him, but from his office. I went out of my way, drove to Calgary once to meet with Stephen Harper and to just try to discuss in a few minutes of time some of those things. I certainly believe that I can work with anybody at this table. I have sat down with Nathan Cullen in the past. Yes, there are vast differences in our approach and our worldview and how we can handle things, what we think will be the best solutions. But at the end of the day, when the voting is over, the person elected will be representing everyone in this room and everyone in this riding, and we'll have to make every effort to understand people's opinions and represent them.
Thanks. Thanks, Rob.
I'd like to ask a question to any one of the members, and that is accountability. If all goes wrong, who's accountable? And will you stand up and be accountable? Whether it be taxes, whether it be healthcare, whether it be all the climate change, whether it be all this stuff with the Indigenous communities, who will be accountable when all goes wrong? And are you going to maintain accountability within your own writings?
Every one of us is accountable to you for the things we do and say. And that's votes, that's things we promised or talked about. Say we're going to do this, we better do it. And otherwise, we will be held accountable by you, and each of us should be willing to be held accountable. I am the leader of the Christian Heritage Party, and I found out that the buck often stops with me on a lot of issues. I'm involved with policy development and program development, and I certainly expect to be held accountable by the members of my party and by the public, and I accept or look forward to your feedback if there's anything that you think I'm failing in that. I want to hear it from you, and my door will be open to you. Thanks.
Thanks.
To bring all the opposing parties together to make some agreements on some developments. Like nothing is happening the way it's going. I mean, no developments, nothing. So is there any way you feel you can get all these groups together and at least get a consensus on some developments?
Resources have been the backbone of our economy in the West, and they still can be. I'm a displaced forestry worker, or let's say I've been, since the repap went downhill, I've experienced some of the ups and downs of that. And I know that the resource industries are facing very big challenges. But one thing we need to do is ensure that our raw resources are processed in Canada. And that includes oil from Alberta. The raw bitumen should be processed into synthetic oil before it ever goes into a pipeline. We should keep the jobs in Canada. Raw logs. We should go back to processing our logs in Canada, not overseas. That's no criticism of those who are making their living right today, cutting and harvesting and shipping raw logs, but I think our focus should be on getting those jobs in BC, not overseas.
Thank you, Rob.
I'd like to hear candidates' vision for the future of healthcare in this country.
Provincial matter, but federal government is involved in funding and also in dreaming the scheme, finding the best solutions for existing problems. We recognize we need more spaces for assisted living and extended care because people are taking up space in hospital that could have a better living arrangement in assisted living or extended care. We want to have universal access to palliative care for those who need it. It's not available today. We would promote additional private clinics using public funding to fill the gap because our public system just isn't getting it done. We would train more doctors and nurses. We would eliminate taxpayer funding for abortion and other elective surgeries and put that money to work for essential services that people are waiting in line for. And regarding pharmacare, we would support limited pharmacare. One of the dangers of pharmacare publicly funded is that the pharmaceutical companies want to start taking advantage and raising the price.
Thanks, Rob.
This election is about the kind of society who wants to leave our children and grandchildren. Will it be a society that recognizes and protects every human life, or a society that treats the preborn and the elderly as inconveniences? Will it be a society that creates a level playing field for businesses, that welcomes innovation and hard work, or a society that burdens business owners with red tape and crippling taxes? Will it be a society that recognizes the value of strong families and that honors parental rights? Or will it be a society that treats children as the property of the state and parents merely as silent partners, useful taxpayers, to be seen and not heard? Voters in this region could choose to once again elect a socialist politician who will go on spending us further into debt, imposing destructive taxes and mandating politically correct speech. You could elect a politician who would waste your tax dollars on useless schemes to fix the climate and on political symbols like rainbow crosswalks. You could choose a politician who will push gender ideology on young children and send your tax dollars around the world to kill preborn babies in foreign countries, as is happening today. Or we, the citizens of Skeena-Bulkley Valley, can chart a new course. We can each cast a ballot for life, family, and freedom. We can send to Ottawa the leader of a national party committed to protecting human life, protecting the elderly, defending free speech, balancing the budget, and promoting responsible resource development and jobs. We each have a choice. You can't make that choice for anybody else. You have one ballot, and on October 21, you will be telling the world, with your ballot, what kind of a country you want to leave your children. Will it still be the true North, strong and free, or will it be a bureaucratic dictatorship run by politicians and judges? You decide. I'm Rod Taylor, National Leader of the Christian Heritage Party. I'd love to have your vote and the opportunity to serve as your MP. Thank you very much.